The Forest is a game where surviving usually means killing. Whether animals for food or enemies for safety, it seems that lives must end for yours to continue. But I wanted to see what would happen if I refused. In this video, I attempt to complete the Forest as a pacifist, never damaging animals or enemies throughout the entire run. This wouldn't just be a challenge of survival, but a story of morality, perseverance, and regret. Our journey begins with the plane crash and the kidnapping of my son. Hours later, I awoke, head pounding, the plane in ruins, and Timmy nowhere to be found. I searched the wreckage for resources imperative to my survival, finding food, meds, and a cool outfit. With no sign of my son, I began wandering the land aimlessly, discovering a cliff face overhanging a mostly clean water source. Unsure of what dangers resided in these woods, I decided to build a treehouse to avoid anything that may harm me. As I stood on my newly built platform, I realized the land had no end in sight. I wasn't sure how I was going to find my son in a land so vast, but I knew I would find a way. Just not today. With it quickly becoming dark, I constructed a hunting shelter and tried to get some sleep. I awoke to the sound of my stomach growling. As I checked my supplies, I realized I was dangerously low on food, having only 2 candy bars to my name. I knew if I was ever going to find my son, I needed to get a reliable food source first. So, I ate a bar, descended my treehouse, and began my search. Hours had passed and all I had found was a lizard. Despite my hunger, I couldn't bring myself to harm him, instead opting to travel even deeper into the forest. As I wandered, a strange structure caught my eye. It was a crude formation of sticks, cloth, bones, and a human leg. I chopped down the structure and picked up the leg to observe it. It was still edible. Was this what it was going to come to? My second day of being stranded and I was already considering cannibalism? I didn't have long to think before I was interrupted by footsteps. I darted my head up to see a creature staring back at me. Hello? No response. Unsure of its intentions, I ran back to my base. On my way back, I thought I saw another one of those creatures in the tree line. Or was it just my imagination? Either way, I didn't want to risk another run-in with them. With my hunger growing and my fear trapping me in my base, I knew what needed to be done. I constructed a fire, placed the leg onto the flames. Soon after, I was no longer hungry. After some time, I built up the courage to leave the safety of my treehouse. Upon reaching the bottom, I noticed the lizard from earlier on the side of my tree. I watched him for a moment and knew I made the right choice. My hunger was satiated, and his life continued. However, not wanting to eat any more body parts, I decided I was going to build a garden to begin producing some more appetizing food. While checking my supplies for seeds, I made a horrible discovery. The flowers I had picked the previous day were edible. The leg, my sacrifice, were for nothing. I wasn't sure how I managed to screw up that badly, but I moved on, needing to find some seeds to start my garden. My search led me to what appeared to be a camp. I slowly approached, thinking I could reason with the creatures, but the place was abandoned. The camp was riddled with corpses. I wanted to turn back, but I couldn't risk leaving any valuables behind. I looted the place as fast as I could and returned home. Although I failed to find any seeds, I was able to scrounge up a few chocolate bars and flowers, ensuring I would survive at least for the next few days. After what I found in the woods yesterday, it was clear that the forest inhabitants were dangerous. So, I decided to capitalize on the food I gathered by using it to fuel a new project. A wall. It was going to take over 50 logs to complete, but it would protect me from the creatures without harming them, so I began chopping. After 2 long days, I finally finished the wall. I stood there appreciating my work and my newfound sense of safety, but the moment didn't last long, as all my effort had depleted my food source once again. Having no other choice, I left the comfort of my walls to continue my search for seeds. If only I knew what was in store for me. I searched and searched and searched, taking every berry, flower, and plant that I came across, but to my dismay, not a single seed. Desperate for more food, I journeyed even further into the forest, coming across a camp. It was just as abandoned as the last. However, unlike the first camp, there was no luggage for me to pick through. Just as I was about to cut my losses, I found the entrance to a cave. Surely there would be cannibals residing inside, but maybe, just maybe, there would be food. It would be dangerous, but I was running out of options. I mustered up all the courage I had and began my descent into the darkness. The cave felt bottomless, the rope endlessly leading me deeper, until I finally felt my feet make contact with the slick stone floor. I spotted a makeshift campsite. As I waded through the candy bar wrappers and empty soda cans, I came across 2 yellow crates. I swiftly bashed them open, only to see flares. If I was going to find food, I would have to go even deeper, At the bottom, I was met with a grotesque behemoth patrolling the cave. Its ravenous footsteps shook the ground below. I was ready to abort the mission there and then, but I saw multiple boxes on the other side of the room. With my stomach only getting emptier, I had no choice but to sneak my way to the supplies. As I crept along the cold, wet floor, that thing spotted me, flinging me across the room. I picked myself up, only to get hurled again. Bruised and battered, I got up a third time, and made a run for the boxes, but... I awoke dangling upside down. Given the situation, everything seemed oddly clear. My concuss-induced dream showed me how to get to Timmy. He was in that pit somewhere. I just needed to find a rebreather, keycard, and climbing axe before I could get to him. However, I had to escape first. My entire body hurt, but I used the rest of my strength to cut myself down. I grabbed a map and compass from the cave and made my way out. I exited defeated. I was injured, starving, and still without food. With no other choice, I was forced to resort to my final option, more cannibalism. I collected 2 more legs, ready to bring them back to camp, and then I saw it. A blueberry bush. I picked the whole thing clean, filling my stomach, and finally, after days of searching, I collected my first seed. I returned home, planted my seeds, and went to bed, worried about my future. I barely escaped that cave with my life, and I would need to explore many more to save Timmy. Being a pacifist has made this difficult situation even harder, but I couldn't go against my beliefs. I wasn't sure if that made me strong or weak. The next few days were spent preparing for my inevitable return to the caves. I charted the island, grabbing anything of use. By day 8, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. My exploration had provided me with plenty of plants and candy to eat. I was boiling my water. I had tons of medical supplies. I built a larger garden. My blueberry bushes were fully grown, and I even built a skull lamp to liven up my base. For the first time since the crash, I felt like I may actually survive this place. But now that I had covered all my needs, there was no more excuses. It was time to plunge into the danger once again. I could only hope it would go better than last time. I entered the first of 3 caves. I almost immediately ran into 2 cannibals, which I used to break open a barrier blocking my path. I then sprinted toward a rope, getting hit a few times. I slid my way down toward the first item needed to infiltrate the pit, the rebreather. On my way out of the cave, I found the rusty axe. Not only was this better at chopping down trees than the stone axe I've been using, but it could completely block the cannibal's blows. This would be a lifesaver for the remaining caves. I used the same strategy for the second cave, running past all the enemies and blocking them when necessary. However, the key card was being guarded by a mutant. I climbed down the rope, somehow managing not to get hit, and made a beeline to the card. After grabbing it, I made my way around the creature and escaped unharmed. On my way to the climbing axe cave, a pack of cannibals ran past me. It seemed that with every day more and more of them appeared. Sure, I had been able to avoid them for the most part, but it felt like only a matter of time before I'd become overwhelmed. I needed to find my son and get off this island soon. I made my way inside and began my search. I again sprinted past everything and eventually got to the axe. With all 3 items collected, it was time to get into the pit. This would be the most dangerous cave yet. I entered the cave knowing there was the only thing I could do. Run. And there I was, the bottom of the pit. I equipped my rebreather and sure enough, I found another cave. After even more running, I made it to the end and was met with another door. I approached the door and presented my keycard. The door swung open, revealing a narrow hallway. I made my way in, climbing ropes and squeezing through crawl spaces until I entered what appeared to be a cafeteria. What was a secret facility doing on a cannibal-infested island? I didn't know what was going on with this place, but I knew Timmy couldn't be far. Eventually, I came across a giant black pyramid connected to a machine. I opened it to find my son. Dead. I was too late. As a last-ditch effort, I put him on the futuristic bed. As I connected the sensors onto him, it seemed I may be able to save him. But then, that horrible pyramid opened its jaws once again. It couldn't be. I checked my to-do list, and there it was plain as day. Find a new sacrifice. I've come this far, been a pacifist this whole time, but to save my son, I would need to kill. Outraged, I began smashing at a door until I made it through the other side. I turned back to look at Timmy, not knowing what I would do next. I made my way to an elevator. I used my keycard once again to activate it. It hummed as it took me higher and higher, until the door gently slid open. I crept toward a room. A large roaring device hung overhead. and a desk sat at the end, overlooking the island. A simple button press and that machine could shoot down a plane. A simple button press and I could have my son back. No, I couldn't. It wouldn't be right. I turned to see another screen. A kill switch. It would shut this whole place down. Nobody else would get hurt, but my son. He would be gone forever. And I would be trapped here. I knew what needed to be done. I reached out and pressed the button. I'd proven that I could survive without killing, but I couldn't save the one person I was here for. The machine instantly went quiet, and an elevator opened welcoming me back to the island. As I exited the facility, I watched the plane fly overhead. Their lives were safe. I pulled out a photo of Timmy one last time and burned it. It'd be easier to survive if I forgot about my life before the crash. I returned to my base, my new home. I had remained a pacifist through it all, but could I really continue to survive here without the cruelty of this place changing me? Then again, maybe it already had.